Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil, and welcome back to Young Quinn. Hello, Stephen Hill. Hello, Myra J.
Hey, Quinn. Hi.
Hi.
I quit.
Quinn
Yeah.
has been on a bit of a break. Welcome back. I know that you've been quite busy running the roads and the cities and the highways and byways. So we welcome you back. Hope
Yeah.
everything is well. Are you back in your place with a sunshiny face?
Yes, I am back in my place in the sunshiny place. Sorry for my cat for being obnoxious. I don't know what he's doing. So
Okay. Okay. And we're back again.
He wants a little more.
I will take off on the Oliver name. Cute.
That is the correct answer.
Yeah. So, Quinn, are you back on campus? Are you? Can you? Are
yeah.
you? Are you?
So
Are you in a secret location?
no, this is my okay. The real tea is that Oliver broke my chair in the desk area that I usually sit in. So it's a bit too wobbly for me. I don't deal with anything that's a bit unstable. So I'm sitting on my kitchen island now. Don't mind like the dirty dishes in the sink. But yeah, so you guys are in the other side of my apartment.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Okay. Okay. Myra, how are you?
I am well. I am
Did
well.
Did you have bad weather overnight?
We had storms. A tornado did touch down south of here in Georgia, but yeah, we had a Torcon 5 last night, and so yeah, alarm just on my phone, alarms were going off and everything, but it's all good. We're all good here.
Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night and it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on in Atlanta? And they showed the trees, and the trees were like 6 feet in circumference, and they were literally uprooted
Oh
and
wow.
falling onto people's homes.
Yeah, yeah. That was a little bit south of here because I have an entire forest literally right
Right.
behind
Yeah.
my house. I can touch trees from my deck, and that's always a huge concern of mine. But everyone is still standing. I don't know for how long, but they're up there today.
Right. Yeah. And Stephen Hill, you are still living the dream in paradise.
It's the best of times, it's the worst of times, Sybil. Best of times because Quinn's back, and goodness knows I have missed dear Quinn for sure. It's the best of times. Worst of times because there's going to be some men over at my house tonight touching on my wife. I feel a way about that. I'm gonna lie to you. There's going to be men that are pretty much hired to come over and touch on my wife. Now,
And
before we
and,
get
and
into
the
a Diddy
problem would
situation,
be,
before we get into a Diddy situation of it, listen. What I want to tell you is,
ah,
Too
they
soon.
are. They are. It's anyhow. And it goes by the company's. The company's literally called Manly Hands. So
I
she has a
like
girlfriend.
it.
oh,
She has
I
she has a
like it.
girl. She has a girlfriend in town, and right over there in our living quarters, manly hands. Two dudes with very manly
they're
hands.
coming in to do the home massage
Well,
thing.
they're doing the whole home massage thing, and
I
I'm
like
just.
it.
By the way, I want to be clear. I'm just kidding. I'm perfectly fine with it. I ain't worried about that at all. But it was just funny. Yeah.
I like it.
Sybil, do you have any manly hands coming towards you anytime near soon?
Look at the time. So
Time for you to answer that question is what it is. Oh, look at that.
and speaking of answering questions, your boy of the two Steves, Steve Hammond of the two Steves, is going to come on with us today. We're going to talk about Cowboy Carter. I can't wait to have that conversation. And young Quinn, we have done our very best to um, talk about the stories that you submitted over the last several weeks that have to do with your area of expertise, the LGBTQ plus. And every week, twice a week actually, Quinn gives us stories that having to do with that community. And this week, talked about the fact that it was the the confluence, if you will, of two events happening on the same day. One of which some people really got a hair up there because of was Transgender Identity Day,
Close.
and okay,
Transgender Day of Visibility.
of Visibility, Transgender Day of Visibility. And I got this one, Easter Sunday. Now it's always on Transgender Visibility Day is always on March 31st.
Yes.
It
Since
just so happened that this
2009.
year
Mhm.
that was Easter. Normally Easter sometime in April, and you don't have that, those two things happening on the same day, and it won't happen for another 200-300 years. But this is the time that a lot of people were just really upset. Well, couldn't they change the date? And why in the world would President Biden be acknowledging this day of all days? And he's like, I'm a Christian. It's, we want to include everybody. And what was the big deal?
Apparently this was a really good time for conservatives or heavy Republicans to use this as an excuse to talk about how President Biden or Democrats are trying to use critical wokeness or like woke ideology. Folks thought that President Biden made this day up. And I really think that's how they have not paid attention every year, because he's been acknowledging it every year since he's been in office. And this day has existed. Transgender Day of Visibility has existed since 2009. So if folks are not aware, the date that we do celebrate Easter does change. And I need to let Tyrese know. I don't know if you guys know, but he was vehemently upset. And he took to Instagram. I was like, I can't believe my president would, on the most holiest day of the year, decide to acknowledge this. And I'm just like, Tyrese.
If it was a day that ended in Y, Tyrese would have something.
Yes,
to
and then
say
he went
about
back
it.
to Instagram to try to apologize. But it's just like, I think at this point, some people just do not need an Instagram, and they need to text people before they decide to make like a whole, anti-woke or critical comment. But yeah, I saw recently too that President Trump is trying to create a day called Christian Visibility Day in response.
Oh, he just wants to sell his Bibles.
He's really calling up all the Christian nationalists, and I really want all my friends, including myself, who do identify as Christian, to understand that this shouldn't be some type of competition to celebrate. Transgender Day of Visibility was created because we do have Transgender Day of Remembrance, which we know takes place in November to acknowledge the lives that we have lost. And Transgender Day of Visibility is to acknowledge the lives that are here presently, because there are a lot of trans youth that do not see trans elders, that do not see all the artists we have, all the celebrities that we have that identify as trans and are gender expansive. So this day is really important. It's really life-saving. And in no way does it, what's the word? I guess top Easter. The two should not be in competition, and creating that competition based off of religious ideologies is quite insane.
Religion, politics, and potato salad will get people arguing more than anything else. So I try not just, everybody can have their own thing. Can we all just get along?
Three,
I said, like bro said,
go ahead. 3 things you said, Stephen? What?
No. Quinn, I'm sorry. Quinn, what'd you say?
Oh, no, I was going to say, even Senator Raphael Warnock, from Georgia, even talked about how Jesus centered the marginalized. And he was saying a quote to CNN that, like, in a moment like this, we need voices, particularly voices of faith, who will use our faith not as a weapon to beat other people down, but as a bridge to bring us all together. And so I think this was such a beautiful, intentional moment that us as Christians could have been like, hey, we want to welcome our trans and gender expansive siblings, instead of continually, violently separating us from them.
Okay, three quick points. My second one's going to come back to intentional moment. Number one, don't let Oliver Twist break a second chair. Number one, don't let Oliver Twist break a second chair.
Right now.
Number two, intentional moment. This was absolutely an intentional moment for on the Trump side trying to win over undecided voters. It was a marketing ploy. They don't really believe it. They understand what it is. And they knew that since Biden had done this to your point, he had done this every single year, that he was going to do it this year, and that this year was going to be fall on Easter. Their response was too coordinated for them not to have this thought out in advance.
This was
it is an election year. Is an election year, and they succeeded. I want to be very clear. If Tyrese is nothing else, he's a bellwether for succession of heavily marketed, really ignorant messages. Tyrese is the king of going off on well-marketed, ignorant messages. Love the guy, but that's true. Third thing is, it does not go unnoticed that what I like to call T-Dove, Trans Day of Visibility, T-Dove falls on the last day of Women's History Month, representing the women, and the day before April Fool's Day, representing the men. I think that I don't think that was I think that was by design. I'm pretty sure, because right at the taint of 31 going,
whoa,
31 going to 1, you're kind of like both at the same time.
No,
You're both at the same time.
We don't have to go there. We don't have to go there.
Not everybody.
That was not necessary.
Taint is crazy.
No, that was not nice.
I love it though. Yes.
Okay, well, everybody has their opinions, but it's not.
Thank you, Kwyn. If you found that funny and not offensive, I'm good.
But
and this won't happen.
Remember where you are.
Emergence of the two of Transgender Day Visibility and Easter is not going to happen again until 2086. So all the fear, all the hysteria is, like you said, like marketing, and I think it was really like a part of the political campaign for sure by conservatives. But it just showed like the silence by us as Democrats, as liberals. Like, this is when everybody really should be like, no, like, let's not attack each other. But instead, everybody was just like, yeah, why is it this day? Oh, no. And I'm just like, guys.
That just shows ignorance on people's parts, that they are just not, and anybody who's clear thinking about this would have said, well, I don't remember it being on March 31st any other year, but let me go back and look.
Right. Instead
of immediately going to Instagram and mouthing off about it, or telling a joke about 2 Corinthians walking into a church, then that's pretty much all that they have.
It requires too much thought. It just requires too much thought. That requires far too much thought, though. This election is not going to be about thought. It's not. The last election, well, the 2016 wasn't either. And so you get that heavily marketed ignorant message, and it gets repeated. It's going to happen throughout this campaign.
It's been happening. So that's not a headline, but it has been happening. So I wanted to get your take on it, and I think that you explained it very well. I just I'm sorry that so many ignorant people had to get involved in the conversation and blare their ignorance to such a deafening level.
Yeah, I think this is also just a really good educational time for us as like Americans as well, to really sit and think, like you said, Sybil, to reflect, like, when was Easter last year? And like, how come I never heard of this day? And now, like, even when I was typing in Google, like, T-Dove or Transgender Day Visibility, instantly Google was like origin, history, purpose. Like, so people are curious now as to like, when did this happen? Who created it? Back in 2009, it was by a trans activist who wanted something, not an opposite of Transgender Day of Remembrance, but something additional, because there isn't that many queer holidays that we can celebrate.
Right.
Yeah, I'm about to throw him across the wall.
There's more queer holidays than there are people in certain states who care to learn about this. Let's be clear.
There's that too.
Some of the other things that we talk about in the What You Need to Know newsletter today is Black and Missing Day. And this is where we join with our friends from the Black and Missing Foundation to talk about Black folks and other people of color that have been missing. And it's kind of sad that we have to have this, but not kind of, it is sad that we have to have this, because when you look at the number of people who are amongst the majority population, their disappearances take up, the first 10, 15 minutes of a news broadcast every day. And in the case of Black people, not so much. So just want you to please take a look at the Black and Missing Foundation mention of the young man who's been missing for quite some time now. And also take a look at his picture. If he looks familiar to you, please go to the Black and Missing Foundation website, and we will absolutely, we'd love for you to get in touch with them and tell them this is where you've seen them. And every Wednesday is when we have an opportunity to take a look and to circulate the photograph as well as the name of a young, and most of the time it's a young Black person who's gone missing, but sometimes you have elderly people with dementia or some other physical ailments and may have just walked out of the house, and they are looking for them. But we want to make this to a point where everybody is very, very aware of those who are missing, and bring them back to their family, or at least to get some sort of closure in their cases. Let's move to the what's really going on segment. We'd love to have you all talk about this, and this is something that I am very excited. I love the concept of the two Steves. It is Stephen Hill and his friend Steve Pammon, and they do a great job on Instagram, and during the pandemic especially. They were together and talking all things music. And Steve Pammon is not just another dude named Steve. He is he is a man of great knowledge and influence. Steve Pammon is now the president of Versus and the former COO of Parkwood, and with so many accolades, not the least of which is as a Grammy Award winner. Let us welcome in Steve Pammon, and let's welcome back the two Steves. Hey, Steve.
Hey now.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm such a huge fan. And Sybil, thank you for honoring me with my presence. Kwyn, it's good to see you. Myra, really love you. And my brother, Steve, we've already, it's funny, we've had this conversation ad nauseum, right, in our favorite restaurant, which shows what a cheap date I am, which is the Cheesecake Factory. So in Steven's quest to, fulfill all pop culture dreams, he took me to the Cheesecake Factory in Beverly Hills last week. This is a true story.
It feels like a contradiction in terms. Cheesecake Factory in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
That's true. But that's us. That would be how we get down. So we had the pre-album release conversation as well as now we get to have the post. So thank you guys.
So obviously, we know that it set records for the most streams, and no one will come close for like a gazillion years, right? With the excitement, the anticipation of Cowboy Carter. What were your first thoughts about this? Even before you knew, and I can't say when you all heard the music initially because you guys are such insiders. But I'm just curious, from those songs that you heard, like Texas Hold'em and the early releases, what were your immediate thoughts about Beyoncé going country? Stephen Hill?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to take that.
Look, I think Steve's going to fill in the spaces, but I remember the situation at the CMAs where she was where it was universally known that she was felt unwelcome. Mm-hmm. And so I think she said, okay, I got this. I'm going to take your genre. I'm going to do it better than I'm going to find the people who are unassailable, Linda Martell, Dolly Parton, in your genre, and partner with them. And then bring the Black people from the genre in and make you deal with me. So when I heard it, I kind of that's how I believed the philosophy was. I'm like, oh, she's going to show all these people exactly what she can do, how strong she is, and teach us all history lessons in country music at the same time. That was my thought.
Yeah. And look, I was going to say, my thoughts are a little complicated just, for everybody's context and background. So I actually produced the segment on the CMAs with the Dixie Chicks, now known as the Chicks, and, Beyoncé. So I worked on that project as well as Lemonade and all the rest of them. So I'm a little biased in terms of the country thing. I think two things. One is that based on that, it was no surprise that not only this project was coming out, and to be clear, B and I didn't talk about Cowboy Carter in terms of this specific thing, but many of these records she's been sitting on for a long, long time. And, anybody that's heard Lemonade, if you listen to Daddy Lessons, frankly, listen to that entire album. That entire album was the 7 stages of grief, but it was also about different genres. Right. So whether it was, Don't Hurt Yourself, which is a rock song, or Hold Up, which had reggae influences, or Daddy Lessons, which was the song that was performed at the CMAs, that was a country tune. That, just shows me that right now she's very focused on being herself. Right. And so when I first heard, frankly, 16 Carriages and Texas Hold'em, I actually was very happy because the Beyoncé that I know, the person, right, that is much more in her lane, believe it or not, than things like, Bow Down and some of the other more stereotypical things. If you really know B, it's actually really weird for me to like hear people talk about how she's switching it up. Like, no, actually, no, in all seriousness,
Right.
Beyonce's biggest selling record, I mean, forget about opinion, talk about facts, is Halo.
Right.
Like that is, the biggest streaming record by far. Then you talk about EXO and some of these other things. I think there's a difference between the artists and who they are and expressing themselves versus the artist that, again, is part of our own pop culture. So that was my first thought of like, hey, I'm very proud of her. The second thing is that, B records every day. And so by definition, when you have thousands of songs, the fact that you are multiple genre is basically self-explanatory. Just you cannot possibly go that deep in the hip hop R&B lane because that's just not who a human being are. We all listen to, Islands in the Stream with Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, right? Stephen will tell you the Bee Gees wrote that song.
Right.
Lionel Richie wrote most of Kenny Rogers' biggest hits, right? If you listen to Zoom, or you go back and frankly, Stuck on You, which was Lionel's single after Dancing on the Ceiling, is to me like as country could be. So I think it's so many things, but I think not to be redundant with what most of the people in pop culture said, I just have to be proud that at a certain point you buy yourself the currency to be yourself. And I think B has bought herself the currency to be herself. And that is to me the biggest part of the project, independent of the individual subjectivity of the songs.
Yeah. And I wondered, you guys, did anybody forget that Lionel did, turned everything upside down when he did the country versions of his hit songs, and everybody's like, "Whoa, Lionel, what are you doing?" But he opened himself up to a whole new audience, and the youngins, the young country stars loved doing the duets with him, doing the trios with him, and as I said, just he took his popularity to a whole nother level.
I was listening to this oldie station over the weekend, and the guy played Stevie Wonder's "I Ain't Gonna Stand for It," and I was like, wait a minute, that was a jam. I didn't even connect it to like country music till I was listening. I went, I said, we was getting it off of that. I ain't gonna stand for it, babe. Yep. Definitely country.
Yeah. Well, the whole notion of genres, right, is, was based on a business construct. It wasn't based on artistic construct. If you listen to Easy and you replace, the bass with, honestly, a treble guitar, that's a country record, right? If you were to listen to many of Dolly Parton's records and again, take out the country and play the same notes on a piano, now all of a sudden that's R&B. Right. That's a love song. When you think about working 9 to 5, right? So a lot of these things, like I said, don't make any sense right now, the way the business is constructed, but it makes all the sense in the world when you start talking about freedom. And so, like I said, I think, for me, what I hope is many of the artists coming up now will just do their best at their best being themselves and, let the chips fall where they may, because again, I would argue the Commodores are some of the biggest, contributors to soul music ever. But if you go and you really listen to that with a blindfold on, that's Alabama country music.
That's right.
Right. Which is different from Texas country music.
Absolutely.
I got a question for you, Stephen. You should be. The answer can be like, I pass. I choose not to answer this. Thriller was famously made because of Michael Jackson's disappointment with Off the Wall. With his reception to Off the Wall. Like if you read Moonwalker, like what literally fueled Thriller was his disappointment with his Grammy reception for Off the Wall. B's never won album of the year. Jay got on stage this year talking about like that don't make no sense.
Yeah.
It feels like, because the term country's thrown about, but if you actually listen to the album, to your point, it's a Beyonce album. It's not all country by any stretch of the imagination. It leans that way. But what it is, because country music is pop music. The number one biggest selling album of the last 2 years, Morgan Wallen. Not the biggest selling country album, although it is that as well. The biggest selling pop album. So if you look at Country Carter as a pop album, do you think there was any intention in the studio, like with Michael, on B's part to like, they are not going to be able to deny this? Do you think? Now, you can, feel free to say like, I can't answer that.
No. Actually, this is a great discussion, and let me, do the caveat, because having, run Parkwood, we got to do those caveats. Otherwise, I don't want Sybil's show to suddenly get taken down. But the truth of the matter is, and I'm just joking, by the way. B, if you hear me, no, I'm just joking.
You're not joking. My show got taken down because of you don't.
Well, see, wait a minute. See, you know how I love it. Steven wants to act like he wasn't involved in some of these things. Right. That's for a different show when we talk about Lemonade.
We've already had an opportunity to take this show down a little earlier.
There you go. Absolutely. But you know what though? See, this is true story. I thought, because there's two different things. There's the construction of the art, then there's the packaging of the album. And, having been in those rooms before, and again, I caveat, I wasn't in the Cowboy Carter room. However, it's just smart. When you look at history, to your point, you look at what Michael Jackson did. Off the Wall was a disco album, right? Renaissance was what? A disco album. Okay. Michael didn't get the acceptance. People forget Off the Wall lost album of the year. And Steven, for most of those people, so they know I'm not making this up, when were the first recording sessions for Thriller?
Wow.
Oh, shortly after.
It was literally the day after the Grammys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Michael Jackson went home and was literally not happy. There's, everybody knows the story. I'm not giving anything to confidence. Not happy about the way Off the Wall was actually received. Started working on Thriller. If you listen to both of those albums, they're very similar with the exception of a few songs. Paul McCartney and The Girl Is Mine, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Again, stay with me.
And
at the end of the day, I know.
What you're about to say is what fueled this question.
So all I'm going to say, and so you have the Paul McCartney introduction. Then you have, again, Beat It, where you have not only Slash, but you have a situation where Eddie Van Halen comes in,
right?
And everybody knows the story after it's recorded. Yep. Right. Eddie Van Halen came in there to riff that. Yep. And so I can go on and on. If you listen to the 27 tracks and you look at the construction, again, I'm just looking at it from a business perspective. The way basically Spotify and the rest of these engines work. If I'm a big Dolly Parton fan and I type in Dolly Parton right now into Spotify, you're going to actually get both Jolene's.
Yep.
You're not just her Jolene, you're going to get the one with Beyonce. That's brilliant. Why? That's merchandising, because the hardcore Beyonce fans will listen to it. Then you're going to have a few people, maybe not everybody, but a few people listen to it that actually are into Dolly Parton. That's a bigger audience. Now extrapolate that out to voting. As a voting member of the Recording Academy, I can tell you, one of the biggest misconceptions is people think that's an award that is an industry award. Even will tell you, the industry doesn't vote for the Grammys. A few thousand people who are blessed by the industry get to vote. So my vote is one of a very small minority. And so that's why Beyonce doesn't win. It has nothing to do with what album is popular, what album the critics say the best. The critics don't vote. However, what's the one thing we know about voting, whether it's music or not? People vote in their own self-interest. And the one change that exists now that didn't exist when Michael Jackson had is everybody that participates in an album that wins Album of the Year gets a Grammy. So guess who's going to get a Grammy if basically this album wins?
Wow.
Kenny, Willie Nelson,
Dolly
Parton, all of the folks who are produced, everybody who's sampled. And so now B, being the superstar that she is, the only thing better than a superstar is superstars. And so now when we go to vote, I got to look at that voting thing and say, I'm voting, wait, hold on a second. I might vote Taylor. Great. By the way, I love Taylor. Might vote Adele. She has another project. Or I might vote Kenny, might vote Willie, might vote Dolly and Beyonce. And by the way, I'm already having it in my mind because I thought it was brilliant what Jay did. Don't think that Jay was just there.
That was just off the top of his head.
come on, man. Like, I love him like a brother, but we all know, like Steven said about the holiday that was mentioned earlier in the fight back, you know, people act stupid, but they aren't stupid. Right. And so now you put that in the universe, like, man, we probably did Beyonce wrong, like not only once, but twice. I don't know if we're going to do Beyonce wrong a third time with Dolly Parton as my friend.
Right.
So I think, again, you know, I'm biased and I don't want to sound like I'm caping, you know, like B can do no wrong, but I will tell you, she probably did no wrong with the construction and the rollout of this album.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask people who have played and have purchased or streamed the album, Cowboy Carter. What are your favorites on this? I'm going to ask our two Steves about that. And Kwyn,
also, if you don't mind, if the people who put out what they thought about it can also say whether they bought it or whether they streamed it.
Okay.
If they bought
Very
and then
good
your
point.
opinion, or streamed and then your opinion, it would be great to get that information.
Interesting. Okay. Young Kwyn, you just got home from Beyonce's concert in Kansas City. Have you had a chance to listen to, or did you buy or did you stream Cowboy Carter?
I streamed Cowboy Carter. I haven't listened to it fully because I was bawling my eyes out after Protector. And so I'm the type of person, I just like to digest things, like, especially with Beyonce, I really just have to take my time. And because of social media's rapid response and rapid consumption, people really just like give you the whole menu and give you their type of reviews before you actually get a chance to do it yourself. So I was like taking a break and just like, let me listen to each song by myself without then going on Twitter or seeing what TikTok said. But it's really, I think it's really beautiful. And she has surprised me again. Like, this is something I never thought that I would be able to say that Beyonce made a country album. And I think for all things Blackness and for us to actually appreciate that we're not monolithic, I think this gives the opportunity for the Black country stars that have been existing before Beyonce made this album to finally be lifted up. Like, you know, I was really glad that a lot of people started tuning in more to, like, you know, Tracy Chapman, for example. And my mom has always been like a huge advocate of like country music. So I've dabbled in like some Joss Stone and like Dolly Parton and stuff. But this is such a beautiful mend of like Blackness in country that's just like, I hope makes our ancestors proud in the way that I'm proud of Beyonce. So
that's neat. That's really good. Myra, what about you?
I have done neither. I have not streamed it. I have not bought it, but I plan to buy it only because I wanted to sit back and get all the feedback and the whole backstory. And this has been such a fascinating back. I have so much respect for this. You talk about a major boss move. I was like, damn, girl, what the heck? It was just masterful. And so I plan to buy it, even if I take my time to listen to it, just because I want those dollars to go to all those people.
Right.
Who participated. So yes, for sure.
Dr. Marks is also a true fan. She too just left the Beyonce concert, and she was dressed on Friday wearing the cowboy hat and all of that.
I did see that. I did see that on Instagram. I did see it, Dr. Marks.
She said, I bought the vinyl and streamed. Love the entire album. As an Arkansan, I had visceral reaction to Blackbird, so it's my sentimental fave.
So it's funny. I thought you were going to draw that connection, Steve. To
I was about to, and I did.
Thriller, and Cowboy Carter both have Paul McCartney, because Blackbird is actually the original backing track with Paul McCartney playing guitar. So
and by the way, Steven,
Thriller and Cowboy both have because The Girl Is Mine was with Paul McCartney. For
context, and sorry, because Steven and I will talk shorthand because we know a lot of backstories. Explain to everybody the true backstory with Blackbird. It's not just that it's a Beatles song.
So Blackbird was literally written about Black women in the United States and their and the civil rights. In the 60s they were called chicks in the U.S., called birds in the U.K. So Blackbird literally was Black woman. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. So when you listen to the song, when you listen to the lyrics and now know that that's the story of Blackbird, has a whole new meaning. When you hear Beyonce sing it, it has a treble the meaning.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things about, again, I would just tell you her process is in order to be that kind of iconic person, you truly have to study the icons. And so she studied the Beatles. They have an album, the White Album, which was transcended for them. When you think about what Michael was trying to do, again, the elevation from Off the Wall to Thriller, even into Bad. And so what, again, I really love about what she and the team, I want to be super clear, even though, B is the focal point, there's, literally 36 people who I could tell you who are super instrumental in bringing that project together, all basically, for the most part, Black folks who don't get a lot of recognition. And that in and of itself, B should get credit for, because many of those folks, it's sad to say, even though they work on the biggest albums of all time, they work on her albums, don't get the opportunity to go in reverse. Like, they're not working on Paul McCartney's album, but he's contributing to theirs. So that's a whole different discussion. But I just think it's really important, because people talk about generations. The true people that transcend the generations in the music business always look to the generations before them and study. And again, it's not copying, it's being inspired.
I remember doing a history paper about this song, about Blackbird, and what it meant in regards to Black women. And my history teacher wanted to fail me because he did not understand. But he's also the guy that wanted to fail me when I did a term paper on suffragettes. And one of my books in the bibliography was called Her Story, and he corrected it to be his story. So that's how oblivious he was to all the things that were going on in the world. But he really wanted to, and God bless my mother, it's like, how are you going to fail it? Well, it's supposition. She said, isn't that what most of you historians have, right? That's a lot of things that they come up with is supposition, and she saved my career, but
but think about the circularity of that story, right?
And so hang on one second, Steve. I've talked to your ears off, but I do want to say we're going to carry over into trending, and Steve, if you'll stay with us, Stephen Hill, Steve Hammond, if you'll stay over, and we'll continue the conversation as well. And so in trending, we're talking about Beyonce's Cowboy Carter. And I got to tell you, one of the songs that just got my toe to tapping, and I was driving when I was listening to it, was Yaya.
Oh, I did hear Yaya. Yeah.
I really that just for me was just like, yeah, and went much faster on the road than I anticipated that I would. But Steve, to get back to you about Blackbird.
Yeah, I was just going to say that again is both brilliant artistically as well as looking at the target market, because when you think about how art is supposed to not only grab your attention, it's supposed to hold your emotion, right? So the fact that you could have that connection with that song in the way you did, may seem coincidental, but it's not. And when you think about the length of time between that song's been released and being covered by Beyoncé, it's one of those things where I scratch my head and I ask Stephen the same thing. Man, how come nobody else thought of this? I say it all the time. I say, we're not that smart. But sometimes it's just good to be right on time. And I think the album is right on time.
And I really hope that people will take that and run with it. And for me, just as a fan of politics and where we are in our political history, I think that would just be brilliant to have that, with her permission, of course, not doing something like the Republican does and just take people's songs and for his ramp up music, but to really for the Black women that are running for office, the Black women that are working the polls, the Black women that are a part of history this year will make this, our song.
Wow, I love that.
I really do. So people are hopefully typing in and telling us what they like, and as Steve asked, are you buying it? Are you streaming it? That's the question. And what are the songs that you're loving on Cowboy Carter? How involved are her children going to be in the music going forward, Steve?
That one is your guess is as good as mine, but I would tell people all the time, the best predictor of future performance is past behavior. And so, in the short lives that the kids have had, and, I was able to work with Blue and I was around when the twins were born, she integrates her family into everything, right? Like like behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, you look at what they've been doing in hair care with Miss Tina, what we built with Ivy Park. And so I would say, I think they really will be around. I think the hope is, again, with the currency that their mom has bought, they can be themselves in the business, as opposed to be what sometimes I think the culture may want them to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that end, a question, right? And it's going to, again, refer to something that happened before. So remember, Willow Smith was big with Whip Your Hair Back and Forth. Like she was 10 or 11 years old, like #1 record everywhere. And she was having a great time. And I remember at the time saying, like, I really hope that her parents treat this like a youth soccer league. What I meant by that is like I'm in it now. And then all of a sudden, I really would much rather do something else. And your kid changed their mind. And this is on record, so this is not inside information. Like when Willow was like, I don't want to do this anymore, Will Smith was like, well, we have all these deals, you got a tour and everything else. She's like, I don't want to do it anymore. and then she cut off all her hair.
Right.
So how are you going to whip your hair back and forth when you have no hair? And he said like, oh, I got it at that moment. That's it. Does it feels like that's the environment where if Blue wants to dance, she'll dance. But if Blue decides she wants to go play soccer, like there's not going to be pressure to dance. Would you could either say yes, no, or like I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
No. Look, who knows? I think that I'll answer with the truth. Who knows, right? Because at the end of the day, it's also very attractive for a young person, right? Like, to get that level of attention. I think the beautiful thing of it is we have that option. Stephen, this is a whole different show, but I tell you, I miss the days when you were running the show because we had young people doing it. I mean, the truth of the matter is, myself, a middle-aged man, talking about, my sister, former boss, is a middle-aged woman. We are at the, I would say not the apex, but we've had a great run. Right. The truth of the matter is, B started before she was 20. Mariah started before she was 20. And what I tell you, I miss from both the intentionality of these type of albums is I miss them coming from young people. Where is the 21-year-old Beyoncé? They may not be selling 1 million records, but has 1 million ideas, has 1 million, art. Because what I really worry about, going back to what you said, Sybil, taking this album as inspiration, I worry that absent Beyoncé, what is the inspiration for these young people to create? What my prayer is that they're listening to this type of album and they're saying to themselves, maybe I could dip into a different genre. Maybe I could pull from history. Maybe there's trauma that I went through that I could flip. Like, like Stephen talked about, bad relationships, bad things that happen at award shows. I think as Black folks, we've grown so much through our art. I just worry that, again, take Beyoncé out of the picture, our art isn't growing.
Mm-hmm. With her presenting this album, I thought about Prince. Remember right before he did the slave tattoo, the reason he did, because he had completed an album and he said the record company wouldn't even listen to it. It's different if I would have done it, presented to you and you didn't like it, but for you to tell me, no, you're a pop artist. And he said, no, I'm an artist. And so then he went, oh, I get it. I get it. You want to put me in a box, and that's what led to that whole thing with the tattoo on the face. And like, let me just go in the vault and pull some stuff out now.
And she got a hell of a vault too, I imagine, from what you guys are saying. So yeah. I want to ask you guys some things that are going on in the rest of the world as we are talking about this. Donald Trump is set to go on trial next week in the hush money trial with Stormy Daniels, and regarding how that money was used that he paid to Stormy Daniels. Was it a part of the campaign and all of that? So now he had asked that this trial be postponed, and apparently the judge said, no, we're not going to give you as much time to talk about me or my daughter or any of my other family members. We're going to get right to this trial on April 25th. And in talking about you're not going to be able to delay the trial. He asked Judge Juan Marchand to postpone it until after the Supreme Court rules on when he has presidential immunity in another criminal case, which is related to efforts to reverse Joe Biden's victory in 2020. He's charged in the Manhattan Supreme Court case with falsifying business records related to the hush money payment to the adult movie star Stormy Daniels. And a judge rejected the last-ditch effort by the former president to delay his hush money trial, scheduled to begin later this month, as I said, in New York. Do you think that's fair, or would you, well, if you were Judge Marchand, how would you have
I was going to say,
I would like to speak for everybody not on the coast or anybody not on the coast in a big city. I'd like to speak for them when I say I don't really care. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Still voting for him. I'll have more money in my check at the end of the month. At the end of the month than I will with Biden. Biden's an older guy. Trump still stands up for me. That's me. In response to that, we're representing a whole bunch of people. I know we should care about it. I know we people, again, I'm playing the role. Don't write me letters saying that you said you're voting for Trump. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm playing a role. And when I'm over, you'll know it. I don't care. I don't care. Y'all are just wasting this time. I may not even think that the election was stolen, but y'all are trying to distract me. And I just want a guy who's going to be in the office, who's going to give me more money at the end of the month, and I'm voting for Trump. And scene.
Yeah.
And with your Bible in hand. What about you, Steve?
I mean, to be honest, Stephen plays a fool so well, as my mom would say. That's about all I can say on that one, brother. It's like, you know what? Let's give you an Oscar, right away. It's good, But the truth of the matter is, I hate to say it, but I agree with Stephen in some respect, because that's the divide. Personally, though, what's really sad is this reminds me so much of why the RICO Act was invented in the first place, which is that you never get a gangster on gangster activities.
Right.
You always get them on the externalities.
Yep.
And so to me, by definition, they're playing around the edges. We know what type of person this is. There's no need for me to be redundant on that. This is a fool. And so it's one of two things. Either we're going to go all out and really look at the evidence and pursue this man independent of who he is and whether he was running. Because the biggest thing, we all know, if it were any of the five of us facing that stuff, come on, man. Listen, at the end of the day, it's a wrap, right? It's a wrap. We're guilty until proven innocent. This is the last man on earth that's innocent until proven guilty.
That's right.
And so, to me, that's self-explanatory to answer those type of people who believe in the monologue that Stephen said, which is, if you do not believe that America is more than fair to a white man, look at how this white man has acted and been treated.
And
that's it.
I said that the latest flavor of Kool-Aid should be called Trump.
Yeah.
Just have a Trump flavored Kool-Aid, because these people are drinking it right on up. And what's frustrating is that people just want to say, get him to trial already.
Yeah.
Later for the delays, get him up there. I don't give a dang if it's jaywalking. Put him on trial for something.
Because we know he did it.
I think and I want to be clear, only put him on trial if his conviction will prevent him from being president. Because if the conviction still allows him to be president, he will be your president again. That's the thing. So any trial that is not going to make it so a conviction takes him out of the running is a trial you don't need to have.
Yeah.
It's worthless.
Yeah.
It's worthless.
Yeah.
Anybody watch the history-making women's basketball games this week?
Oh, of course. They're more exciting than the men.
I think so too. I think that that championship game that was actually didn't quite make it to the championship level between LSU and Iowa, I thought was just the best basketball I'd seen in a very long time.
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, they're playing better than the men. I mean, just from a quality, and I say that with no bias whatsoever. Just as a basketball fan, it's more exciting.
Yeah,
it's just more exciting. There are more stars. You ask people today, name you 10 young men that are playing in the Final Four for the men, and I'll give you $1,000. Most people wouldn't make it at all.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, the women, I have to tell you, you could rattle off a star on every team. I mean, the fact that University of Connecticut and North Carolina State University both made the Final Four, women's and men. But the women's team actually is drawing more attention than the men. I think right there, that lets you know where we are. And I'm happy for it.
A few things, a couple of things. ESPN, that game was watched more than any men's game ever. Every baseball game, every NHL game, ESPN, like that game was watched more than every other game except like 2 other games in different sports. I forget what they are. Number one. Number two, Caitlin Clark has been offered $5 million to go play in Ice Cube's 3-on-3 league. I think that's one of the boldest and awesomest moves. I think, look, you should be able to be great and then be offered great amount of money to do the thing that you do. I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe she'd be the highest.
Brothers in the boys league do.
Right, she'd be the highest paid player in the 3-on-3 league, and
Steven,
that's exactly the way it should be.
You and I both know how credible $1 million offers from people in the music business are. Like, let's just put that out there, bro. It's like, hey, Sybil, I got about $8 million for you to come and just to hang out with me. It's just my birthday party. You know, I love to have this conversation. So let's put it in the newspaper. Steve Pamela offers Sybil Wilkes $8 million for her show. Right? Like, right. I mean, no, and I don't say that to be mean.
Get it in advance.
I don't know.
Get it in advance.
Exactly. Okay. We just, you know, unfortunately, I've been around this block too many times, and it's like I see the mainstream folks with that type of behavior. I hate to see us do that, brother. Don't put that out. First of all, we know if that was real, it would come out through other sources. Right. There is nobody that's making that type of offer that's then going to go on TV and tell you, I made Sybil that offer. Sybil, you would have that offer. It would be it would be out there in a big way. And I'm not mad at him because it's great PR for the big three.
For him,
if you could associate yourself with the highest rated basketball game, period, men's or women's.
So let me ask you this. With Angel Reese coming out and declaring today, is she going to get the same love that Caitlin Clark is?
Absolutely not.
Racial. It's not racial. It's not all race. It's not all race. I don't. That's the. So I don't want to.
No. I'm not talking black girl, white girl, because I'm black.
It's just it's self-explanatory. LeBron has a great deal with Nike. It's not the same as Jordan.
Right.
Jordan has a building, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's the difference in magnitude. Doesn't take anything away from LeBron, but he's not going to impact the interests of Jordan. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon, and it's what it is, and she's rightfully deserving that. Angel Reese, in my opinion, is a much more, I'll put it this way: I love Angel Reese's game more than I do Caitlin Clark. That doesn't mean she's better basketball.
Caitlin Clark game Reese all day long.
But the difference is
out there.
And I've seen this. Caitlin Clark, there are whole stores in Iowa, like literal, you see the takeover stores where it's nothing but sewer. In fact, I would tell you guys this. The only thing I've seen that's similar to Caitlin Clark in my travels have been when I audited Taylor Swift's business and when I ran Beyonce's business. That's a true story. People think it's basketball. So when they think about her, they think, oh, it's such a popular women's basketball player. This is no joke. I saw little kids under 5, literally dressed in that Iowa 12 uniform, just waiting to get a glimpse of the bus that goes by. Not going to the game. They're waiting on the bus. Angel, I love. Angel doesn't have it like that. Angel Wilson.
That NIL money has got to be stupid.
Caitlin Clark is the Eminem of women's basketball. You want her to be black. You really want her to be black. She's the dopest thing out there, and you really want her to be black, but she ain't. But you still can't hate because, dope.
Well said.
Let's move to entertainment right quick. As you can see, Steven's moniker today is Eclipsing Hill. We are going to be out there on Monday for the solar eclipse. And Steven, I am watching the weather.
It's not looking good?
That's what they
Clouds
said.
and
It's
rain.
not looking good for Texas to see.
Then I'm headed,
it.
then I'll be headed to Dayton, Ohio. I'm be clear.
No, I just want you to be flexible because, yeah, for sure. Okay.
So are they canceling those special
American
flights then to Texas? Because I think JetBlue, at least from here at New York,
Yeah.
where I'm at, they were having special flights to Texas so that you could see the eclipse from the plane.
And I think they'll say, well, you can look outside if you want to. You're not going to.
So Delta has special flights. Delta has special flights going from Austin to Detroit in the path of totality.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So I think the challenge with that is the plane's in the dark, but one side of the plane gets the sun.
Right.
Right. If you're on the A side, you get the sun. On the F side window, you just it's just dark. That's cool. I won't get.
Now let me ask you a question: cool. Who want to be on a plane full of people from Detroit arguing about what's hot? Let's just throw that out there. Let me tell you, I'm glad you said Spirit ain't doing that, because let me be 100% honest. Because I'll be on TikTok the day after cracking up, because it's gonna be some foolishness.
So you say the plane's gonna go? Yeah,
it might have to with a plane full of Detroit people on there. Because if I'm the pilot, let me tell you who I'm not arguing with.
Okay.
The people in the back.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. No, it's gonna be fun, Steve. I hope that I hope the weather does cooperate for us here in Texas in the zone of totality. But I am watching seriously where the clouds are coming in, what time, and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep. Let's close out with our jewel. Being patient with others reflects our inner peace, recognizing that everyone is on their own unique path. Inhale patience. Exhale frustration. That's our jewel. Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate your joining us as always.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's always a lot of fun. We appreciate
anytime I can see my brother on here, he cracks me up.
Steve, before I forget, you have an appearance at Columbia School of Business, right?
Oh no, actually, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's me. It's me. Wow, it's funny
Steve,
you thought it was that Steve. Wow. Why I can't have appearance in business, Sybil? Like I can't have appearance in business school? Like I'm not smart enough? You calling me the dumber Steve, which is accurate.
No, I'm calling you Magic Hands Hill.
I think they put up something when I spoke there a while ago.
Got it.
I think that might have been it. But now my job is just hanging out with Stephen Hill, so it's all.
I love that. I love that.
And getting a free meal at
listen, cheesecake. By the way, you guys are more than welcome, Stephen. Would you tell him? It goes down at the Cheesecake Factory.
Goes down to Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, absolutely. We had some great discussions.
We closed it out.
We literally closed it out. Let me tell you, I've been thrown out of worse place. You think that flight on Spirit to Detroit on the Eclipse or something? You try hanging out with Hill at the Cheesecake Factory in Beverly Hills.
More than Papado. I see. Okay. All right. Okay.
By the way, I have always said company over cuisine. So I'll take Cheesecake Factory with Steve Pammon over Pappadeaux's by myself any day. I'm sorry. I got to go. Dexter and Raphael are here. So and they're doing like this. They're doing like this.
Give them my number. Give them my number. Would you? Kwyn, welcome back. Thank you. Myra, we'll see you again soon. Steve, hope to see you Monday. And Steve Pammon, thank you as always. Bye, everyone.
Always. Bye-bye.
Great show. Thank